Before we get into the video, shout out to our sponsors Subside clothing brand. Subside is a new, up-and-coming clothing brand established in Bristol that is looking to add something different with their clean designs that celebrate their roots. You can find the link to all their social medias in the description of this video. From the Terrace Podcast and Subside clothing brand, it's a match made in heaven. Support the boys, support the grind, shop Subside. Hello and welcome back to the From the Terrace Podcast and another edition of Travel Talk. You weren't quite ready there, were you?
Nope.
We are back after the first games of the new year. We are in 2021 and we're now in national lockdown, so life gets better, as they said. Not quite. Life hasn't got better for a few teams either, are really good in the Championship. It feels like the same, different year, same shit. And for one of those sides, it's Sheffield Wednesday. Now, they've had a little change at the top because they obviously parted ways with Tony Pulis after just 45 days. They've won 1-0 against Derby on Friday with under caretaker charge. But, I mean, how are we going to summarise, but not just this result, but how are we going to summarise Pulis' time at Sheffield Wednesday?
I mean, I'm pretty sure the chairman of Sheffield Wednesday said it best. It is the worst decision he's ever made, or I think he said something like that. So, I mean, if your chairman's saying that and you go from a position where, from the outsider point of view, you looked good under Gary Monk, but obviously there was something internal going on, to being downright terrible under Tony Pulis. I don't know what other word you want me to sum it up. Terrible, awful, waste of time. I can't really think of many things, and just shows when Tony Pulis isn't in charge. I think they've got more points than what they did when he was in charge in just one game or something stupid like that. So, fair play to them to get rid of their manager and putting a result in against a resilient and informed Derby at the time. So, fair play.
I mean, we both agreed at the time, but we thought sacking Gary Monk wasn't the right decision at all. We thought Tony Pulis wasn't a bad appointment, but we just didn't agree with the Monk choice at all. I mean, going forward in terms of new managers, looks like Paul Cook might be the favourite this time round. He was someone that we spoke about for replacing Gary Monk. Do you think Paul Cook would maybe be a better fit than what Pulis was, or is there someone else you think who's out there at the moment who would be the best for the Sheffield Wednesday team?
Well, I think we can agree that. I think you brought it up actually that you said Tony Pulis is good for getting out of Premier League relegation, but Championship relegation is a different thing entirely. So maybe that wasn't best fit for that. I could see why. I could see Paul Cook being all right. He was good under Reading. What about Wigan? And towards the back end of the season, he really shone and he really put in results. And I think that's what, if they continue like this, is what Sheffield Wednesday exactly need. So, I mean, it makes logical sense, but Tony Pulis in some elements also made logical sense because he's good in relegation battles. But, I mean, I can't think of many people on the top of my head that have been in the situation that Paul Cook has been in, again, with a team that's had financial instability, like what Sheffield Wednesday are still kind of going through and what we have been going through. So, sure, why not take the risk if he's available and you can get him? Why not? Because you need all the help you can get at the moment.
Yeah, to be honest, I think under the circumstance, Paul Cook probably is the best manager for the job. Had still a bit of Wigan. He can get the best out of a squad, but without much funding. Sheffield Wednesday still have some good players. It's not a complete squad, but they still have some very good players, the likes of Barry Bannon, Callum Patterson, Aidan Flynn. These are professionals who have had very good Championship careers. We beat Derby 1-0 on Friday, but to be honest, it was a game where I think they were just lucky that they had that bit of quality that shone through in the end Wednesday. But Derby dominated that match. Derby could have been 2 or 3-0 up before Wednesday even got into the game. So, I mean, I think Wednesday are clearly a team that needs a philosophy and needs a structure to it. They look like a team that's all over the place. They've got the quality on the pitch, so they can win one-off games like this. But in the end, they didn't play very well, and they were quite lucky. If we briefly mentioned Derby, Wayne Rooney, they've lost a game, but he has got them, I think, finally playing some good football, hasn't he? Do you think Derby's any like talk of relegation's gone now for them? Do you think this is just about getting further up the league now?
I think it will be gone soon because we've seen the past few games when they're now starting to get results that aren't related to a relegation bound team. No chance. So for now, they need to focus on getting out of that because that result means they're back in the bottom three. So they're essentially no better from where they were when Rooney took the job. So focus on that first. But with the performances they're getting, then I think they should, by, I don't know, end of March or something like that, they should be right up there, probably around, I want to say, 14th maybe, which, considering where they are, where they were for the majority of this season so far, is pretty good going.
No, I agree. I mean, they're still in the bottom three, but they were looking like they could be completely cut adrift along with Sheffield Wednesday at one point. I think Rooney, although it was only 3 wins in 8, I believe, it's definitely, it took the first couple of games to get drilled into them, but it's definitely a shift. They definitely look much better than they were beforehand.
Yeah.
The next game we're going to mention the weekend was probably the biggest one in terms of league position. We got Swansea beating Watford by 2-1. Jamal Lowe getting a brace. Watford took the lead though, Regan. What do you think of the game? What do you think it shows in terms of, because I know you were quite excited for the new Watford manager. What do you think it actually shows in terms of who really are going to be contenders in the Championship this season?
To me, it didn't really show like a clear favourite out of these two teams that I think, watching the game, like, oh yeah, this team could keep this up and get top two. I didn't really see that throughout the game because these two teams are more focused on defending than attacking. Because we've seen that throughout the whole season. They've got the two best goal defence in the league. But I think if there was a statement ever to be made, it's by Swansea because they've been brilliant in the past few games and they've had some tough opponents and they've shown little sign of weakness, which we saw towards the back end of last season when they just snuck into the playoffs, and that we showed in the second half, the second leg against Brentford, just what this team could do against like better teams than them. They kind of crumbled in the pressure situations, where this is like the most pressure they've been in to come out of this December period now and still be and probably be one of the most informed teams in the league. That's another statement made, and I think results around them, if they continue this and that amazing defense keeps up, because there's no sign that they won't. That's only one goal in like 4 or 5 games they've conceded, something was stupid like that. If they keep this up, then I don't see why we can't start mentioning them in top 2 conversation, because they're deservedly there.
Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced by Watford at the moment. They're not on the greatest of form. It looks like they were a very steady ship who were getting, and I mean, they're still 6th place and they've got a game in hand, and it's not exactly that they're far off. I'm not completely writing them off, but I'm just not completely convinced they're on the level of, I know it was a tight game, but I don't think they're on the level of Swansea, of probably Brentford, Bournemouth or Norwich at the moment. We'll wait to see, because the manager, you've still got to give him more time to put his stamp on things. But I think this this game showed anything, although not a fantastic and unbelievable performance, didn't swipe Watford away, I think this puts Swansea firmly in the competition for top 2. They're currently 2nd in the league, and they're just on form, and they're beat, like, they seem to have the occasional slip up where you think they draw a game, you think they could have won, they should have really be winning that, but they're never getting thumped in games. They're always staying in games, and as long as you stay in a game, with the lack of goals they're conceding, as long as you stay in a game, you've always got a chance of picking up a point from it. So I think Swansea are definitely firmly, I think this is a statement, and I think they're firmly in the conversation for top 2, when maybe beforehand they hadn't been. Finally, the last game we're going to mention from the first games of 2021 is Millwall 1, Coventry 2, because it was much of the same for Millwall. They have 1 win, I believe, in the Championship at home this season. I believe that's true. They have 1 win in the Championship at home this season. Lost 2-1 at home to Coventry. And I think this is a team that we're seeing the full impacts of maybe reasoning that I had a decision behind Millwall being 5th in the league. I believe I predicted at the beginning of the season. A lot of that probably would have been impacted by the hope that maybe fans would be back by now, because Millwall was always a tough place to go. But they've clearly, without facts, completely lost that. They've completely lost the intimidating nature of the Den. And you feel like the way Millwall like to play, right? Gary Rowett likes to get his sides to play. They feed off of that. And now there's no fans. I feel like Millwall are very damp squib of a team. They haven't really got much about them, have they?
No, you're completely right. Millwall is one of the most intimidating places to go. If not in the Championship, then probably English football, or maybe even European football, because no one wants to go to the Den to play Millwall. As simple as. But a few weeks ago, when we were doing our Twitter predictions, I actually said that I generally could fear for Millwall this season because they've got really nothing going for them. And the past few games, including this one, they play for draws. There's nothing about the team in performances. I see like, oh, they're going to go on to win this game. No, it's just this is another case where for the first 20 minutes before they conceded, they were just playing for, you can have the ball and then we'll have the ball. We don't really show any attacking prowess really. And that's not the way you're going to succeed in this league, because even if you draw every single game this season, you're getting 42 points. That's not going to be enough. And there's nothing really I can see in the past few games, well, quite a long time actually for Millwall. I'll be like, wow, this team's actually doing quite well. I can see this team win. I don't think I predicted them to win in probably a good month or so, which just shows my lack of faith in them right now. And I generally fear for them because that's a team around them in the league right now, because there's teams below them that shouldn't be. They're not in Forest shouldn't be lower than them. Derby shouldn't be lower than them. So without that, Millwall are down in 19th, 20th place. And those teams around them, they need to get results if they want to climb up. So I can't see them do anything good against better teams. They're losing them. And I'm losing a bit of faith because that old faithful of Millwall at home and all their fans, they ain't got that. What do they have?
Yeah, it seems like if you'd asked this question at the beginning of the season, you'd have been laughed at, because it just seems like it was the perfect fit, and we know he's a good coach. But do you think we could be seeing the end of Gary Rowett soon? Because there's only so long this could go on, I'm assuming, because Millwall have been a team that have been very strong in the Championship for a few seasons now. And if they were, I don't think their board would be very happy if they got relegated, would they? Because it's not a guarantee that you're going to come back up. And I don't think a club with the quality Millwall do have on their side should be going down. So do you think we could be seeing the end of Gary Rowett soon, or do you think he'll pick up results and that won't happen?
I think, don't get me wrong, if results continue, 100% he's gone. Because like you said, Millwall is like one of the mainstay teams in the Championship. Like I can't see Millwall get relegated for quite a while, because when I think of Championship, one of the teams I think of is Millwall.
Yeah.
And if they slip down there, then I don't think the board has much choice. They have to sack him, because this isn't a position where Millwall should be, fans or no fans. That team is good enough to not be near the relegation battle. But we've seen quite a few times towards the back end of last season, especially when it wasn't fans in the first place, Millwall did put in a good few results. So it can change instantly with Gary Rowett. They can just literally put in a few good performances straight away, and then they're out of this situation. But it's all on consistency right now. And if they can't find any, then I fear for Gary Rowett, because Millwall should not be where they are now, and it's his fault.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I think. I think Gary Rowett is a manager who I very much appreciate. I think he does. I don't particularly like his style of play, but I think he gets the best out of players. And it looked like him and Millwall was the perfect match, and it felt like it was the obvious appointment. And then he'd started very well, but it is going downhill now. And you're right, Millwall, although they have had a couple of spells in League One in the last 10 years, they're a team now who's on paper the likes of Jed Wallace. You have Troy Parrott on loan. You have some other good midfielders, good backline with Jake Cooper. They should not be getting relegated from the Championship with some of the teams that are in this league. So, especially with the likes of Sheffield Wednesday having a points deduction, but Millwall are slipping close to that relegation zone. So I think it could be only a matter of time if Rowett doesn't turn the results around, but he is sacked. And I'd be interested to see who they bring in, because it doesn't feel like there's many options out there at the moment. Anyway, we're going to go on to predictions, Regan. How did we do after last week?
Oh yeah. well, it was all right. I mean, we haven't really done. I mean, considering that obviously a lot of games were postponed in the past few weeks, it's not out of 12 or anything. I think that this week was out of 9,
Yeah,
something like that. 'Cause we had 3 or 4 games postponed, so I suppose 5 each for this week isn't too bad.
yeah,
It's just about over half. So I'll quickly. So I mentioned it to you, but I'll mention all the viewers. Blackburn versus Birmingham. Both guessed Blackburn, so that was a point. We both guessed Derby and Sheffield Wednesday, so that was nothing. You predicted Reading over Huddersfield. I said Huddersfield, so you got the edge on that. Norwich versus Barnsley. Norwich and just about Norwich. Preston versus Nottingham Forest. You both said Preston, and well, keep an eye on Nottingham Forest, I guess.
yeah.
Swansea, Watford. I said Swansea. I backed Swansea, and they pulled through. You said a draw, which is the more logical one, I guess. We both backed Borough against Wickham, and they delivered towards the end of the game. And Bournemouth against Stoke. We both said Bournemouth because Tyrese Campbell wasn't there. So yeah, that was 5-5 overall. Sorry for this week, and overall is 118 to 106.
12 in it. We'll peg it back. Like we said, there's plenty of time. Plenty of time. I'm not losing my head yet. You know I'm cool, calm, and collected. Anyway, Regan, we will get into the predictions for it's the 16th of Jan and some games. Then we do have some midweek games before, only a couple, but we will count those in the predictions off camera. We'll do just this game week. The next one after, obviously, we have the break for the FA Cup this coming weekend. So it is a couple of weeks' time. All these games get played. With some rotation, people are going to be able to get some fresh legs into them. So I think we may be seeing the best teams starting to win a lot of games this game week. But we'll see how you predict. The first game is the early kickoff. It is Middlesbrough versus Birmingham at the Riverside.
Oh Christ Almighty! This has the potential to have draw written rule all over it because there's two teams that will happily sit back and do nothing. But I can't back Birmingham. I just can't. And Neil Warnock just is a very good manager in this league. So I'm going to have to say Middlesbrough.
Yeah, I think Borough scored 3 goals against Wickham. I know Wickham aren't the best side in the world, but got some. They had some goals in them, and the only thing you worry about sometimes is potentially if Borough have lost their goals on certain occasions. Sometimes they don't just quite get the goals out of themselves, but they're doing all right at the moment. And I think Borough will win this game. I think Birmingham are pretty drab at the moment, and they're not looking exactly too inspiring. So I think it's a pretty banker home win for me. Next one is Blackburn Stoke. Stoke still in the mix of the playoffs, but they are out of form at the moment. Whereas Blackburn scored 2 goals, one at Birmingham on the weekend, and Bradley Dack is back playing and back in the goals.
Yeah, that's a massive boost for Blackburn, especially at a time where Adam Armstrong isn't really firing at the moment. I don't think he scored in.
Scored against Birmingham, to be fair.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, but he scored the opening
Oh,
goal.
yeah, yes, he did. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, but he was on a bit of a drought. You're right.
Yeah, still one in. I mean, I'm not going to say a number because I'll probably make a joke on myself again. But Blackburn with Bradley Dack is almost a completely different team because the creativity and the attacking prowess he brings to a team is unbelievable. I think on his day he's probably one of the best midfielders in the champ because some things he does I'm blown away with. And against a Stoke team which don't have someone and they don't have any creative flair, I think they need to buy in this transfer window, if I'm being honest, if possible, to try and get a better attacking wide man or something like that. Maybe a dynamic midfielder, but I can't see Stoke really causing Blackburn much issue. So I'm going to say Blackburn.
Blackburn. You know what? I'm going to join you on Blackburn too. Just two reasons that Stoke are completely out of form. Blackburn, with Bradley, that you're right back, scored a couple of goals, kept a clean sheet, which is quite important. Blackburn, I believe, it only kept 1 clean sheet before this season, before that game. So now that's an important factor for them. And you'd think with Stoke's lack of firepower at the moment, if they can keep another clean sheet, you very much bank on Blackburn and score some goals. So I'm going to go for Blackburn in that game. The next one is Bournemouth Luton, home banker Regan.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But Luton, it's just you don't know with Luton. Some games they could be terrible and they roll over for you. But
Their away
some
form particularly strong though, is it?
no, not at all. Which providing, I mean, apart from me trying to reason with myself, saying could it? No, Bournemouth.
Yeah, that's three. We've agreed on in a row. 3 home wins. The next one, Bristol City versus Preston. Preston off the back of a 1-0 loss home to Forest, not many people expected. Bristol City just off the back of their game was postponed against Brentford due to very suspicious COVID reasons. It didn't seem to get too much explanation from the EFL. But City aren't exactly firing on form at all at the moment, are they? However, have recalled a couple of players to help bolster their squad for injury. They've recalled Casey Palmer, they've recalled Cameron Pring from Portsmouth. So a couple more additions to the side, and I think that someone like Casey Palmer could help City.
Yeah, no, but don't get me wrong. These players are no mugs. They're calling back. They're not just any youth players no one's heard of. These are influential players.
Mm.
Um, these two teams I can rarely predict because I would not have predicted Preston to lose to Nottingham Forest. But I think it was only 3 weeks ago these two teams actually played each other in the reverse fixture deep down. I think Preston may have won that game. I think they may have won.
They won one
Yeah,
0. Yeah, the fixtures have reversed quite quickly, which is weird.
yeah. Preston at Deepdale is a 1-0. Isn't convincing for the away leg, and Bristol City have had a break. This is hard to call. I'm going to say Preston again because Bristol City are very much out of form.
I'm gonna go for. You're right. It's probably the hardest one to call so far. Definitely. Um, Bristol City, I think, will be boosted by the return of those players. But they're also not in great form. Preston, I fancy them in terms of goals away from home. They scored all those goals at Brentford, scored all those goals at Bournemouth. Do I think they're gonna do it in this game now? It's not a very draw type game, but because I can't call it, I'm gonna have to go for it. So I'm gonna go for a draw between City and Preston. The next one is in South Wales. It's Cardiff, Norwich. Cardiff have slipped down the table in recent weeks. We've mentioned the qualms of Neil Harris's job. Norwich still flying at the top of the league, although it wasn't particularly convincing against Barnsley.
No,
Do you see this as a banker for the top of the league side, Regan, or do you think they might have been for a hard day?
I think so because for the past few weeks I've said that Neil Harris is going to get his job back on track. He's going to get these results, and that loss to Wickham is just confirming like, well, if you're losing to Wickham, what are you going to be in this league? You go from literally the worst extreme to the best extreme in one game after the other. So if they somehow beat Norwich, which is very much possible because it's the Championship, then fair play, but logic, I have to go for Norwich.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see past it either. God, my Christ, we're agreeing on too much this week, but yeah, Norwich are going to win the game. I personally think when every team's been given a couple of weeks off, because I mean they're playing in the FA Cup. Let's be honest, Norwich, no team's going to be playing their first team in the FA Cup, or very few will be. I think Norwich coming back revitalised away at Cardiff. The pressure that will be on Neil Harris, I think Norwich will walk all over them in that game. So I'm going for a convincing away win. Coventry, Sheffield Wednesday. Will Wednesday have a new manager by then? You would probably suspect so with the 2-week absence. And Coventry on good form under Mark Robins, having just won at Millwall. It's a tough one to call this potentially, isn't it? Because we don't quite know whether they'll have a new manager. You'd expect though, but who is the manager going to be? We don't know yet. So it's a hard one to predict.
It is, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at their recent results here, and they've actually got 10 points out of their last 4 games out of
Yeah.
possible 12, Sheffield Wednesday. So I'm like, well, if they get a new manager, what if they ruin this whole thing? And what if they just keep losing and he's not the right fit? Um, I think because I usually back Coventry as St Andrews, I'm going to continue to do so. So I'm going to say Coventry.
Go Coventry. Ooh. Stuff on the call for me. If there wasn't a new manager potentially coming through, I think I would go Coventry. But I think by then Wednesday will have at least a bit of a boost from a new gaffer. So I'm going to go draw. going to go draw in that game. Mhm. You know what? I'm going Sheffield Wednesday. I'm going Sheffield Wednesday. Very, very controversial because seeing as Coventry picked up some decent points and we don't know the new gaffers, but this just wouldn't surprise. Sheffield Wednesday is so much one of those clubs where they'll get the new gaffer in, and because that team is talented, they'll be revitalised at least for a few weeks. And they'll just score 4 at Coventry. It wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't put it past them at all. I'm going to go Sheffield Wednesday off a very flawed logic. Derby Rotherham at the Eyebrow. I mean, it just feels like that's got to be a derby win, is it not, in the form they're in? Rotherham aren't particularly inspiring anyone at the moment and look like they could be going down with a whimper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to say. Yeah, Derby.
Derby. We're both going to Derby. Across the Midlands, you've got Nottingham Forest and they're hosting Millwall. Forest have picked up some. They're not exactly flying up the league, but they've picked up some decent results in the last few weeks. And Millwall, we've mentioned, not exactly on a roll. So is this going to go with the form? Can you see it?
Wait, what? 1, 2, 3. Forest haven't lost since the Brentford game. They haven't lost in 5. I actually didn't realise that.
No, but too many draws in that though, isn't there? Not.
Oh yeah, well 3. Yeah, 3 out of 5. These are 2 teams that shouldn't be where they are in the league, really. But I am going to go with the form, and I think Nottingham Forest are starting to get these results. They kind of gone under the radar with us. We haven't really spoke about them since they've starting to get the just occasional 3 points, 1 point. So I'm gonna say Nottingham Forest.
They can start getting our attention when they get into the top half of the table, Regan, because they're still not exactly inspiring, are they? I'm going to agree with you on Nottingham Forest. Just going with the form, really. 2 teams that do deserve to be where they are in the league is next. It is QPR versus Wickham. I keep saying, I mean, Wickham he went 1-0 up against Borough, gave him a little fright. I feel like Wickham, although it's obviously still struggling very much so, the lack of quality in their squad, they're at least giving teams a lot more of a go in the last few weeks. Rather at the beginning of the season, it felt like they were just easily losing. Now, they're at least giving it a go. I think the QPR side that are really, really struggling. Warburton looks like he could. But I mean, there's no real pressure on him, it seems, looking from the outside of him. But I mean, it feels if I'm looking at that, if QPR keep getting closer to the relegation zone, it's only going to be a matter of time before they pull the plug on him. So I mean, can you see QPR having a tough day against Wickham, Regan, or are QPR just going to have too much quality?
I'm going to make a very bold prediction here, and I think that after the West London derby, where they get absolutely trounced in the FA Cup, I think they're going to be so incredibly deflated that I just think they're going to lose, because you lose to your 2 West London rivals in a few months. I think it's going to leave them deflated. And plus, Josh Onham was going to break, say, Samuel's legs. So I am going to say Wickham Wanderers.
I wouldn't do that because that feels like that's QPR's only source of income over the next few. It's the only player they can sell. And it does look like Asai Samuel is going to leave as well, by the way, which is more bad news that's sort of looming over the club at the moment. Did you say Wickham? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to join you on Wickham. Just it's not rare. It's not often that I look at a game that Wickham are involved in and I see it as I can't look past them. I think that's a game for them. I think it's well set up for Wickham to win that one. Next one is Reading, Brentford. Reading off Lucas João banging in the goals off the back of 2-1 win at Huddersfield. Brentford obviously having just played their League Cup semi-final against Spurs, which I think they gave a good account of themselves in. They're flying in the league. The unbeaten run is now over, but in all competitions, but not in the league. Still going very well. Josh De Silva will be out for the game, which is a bit of a miss for Brentford as he picked up the red card in the semi-final. Both teams in form, Regan. Brentford obviously the most probably informed side in the division, but Reading is still there or thereabouts. It's a tough game for Brentford, isn't it? But I mean, which way can you see this going?
Ooh, this is a tough one, because one of the hardest places to go at the moment to pick up points is arguably Huddersfield, and Reading did exactly that, and they took all 3 of them. So I've got to give credit for that. But it's another case where the reverse leg was just a few weeks ago, and Brentford just looked a completely different class to Reading. And I don't think just a change of venue is really going to change that. So I'm going to say Brentford again.
I'm going to back Brentford too. I'm always here to back Brentford as much as I can. I think the miss of Josh Da Silva is going to be really worrying. It's not come at a good time. I really think he let himself down getting that red card because that Brentford, with the injuries they have, with the likes of Norgard and Baptiste, don't really have many midfield options now. So Brentford are going to have to be on their game to win this because it's not an easy match. But you're right. That Brentford had a lot of absentees in that reverse leg a few weeks ago and still swept Reading aside, really. So you can't really look past the Brentford win. So I'm going to go over the away side. I'll go Brentford in that one. We've got 2 more games. So the penultimate game is Watford, Huddersfield, Regan. Feels like it's a tough one for Watford, but they should win that at home, should they not?
It feels like we're literally previewing like 3 weeks ago again, because this is another game that happened a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
And
the reverse has come very quickly and very straight
yeah,
up. Really. Yeah.
I distinctly remember this game because Huddersfield just looked in control majority of the time, and I think that was one of the last games before the manager got sacked. I believe it was something like that, or maybe
Yeah,
it was the one
Ben
afterwards.
Foster made the mistake in that.
Yeah. I am gonna say I'm gonna flip the tables in this one. I'm gonna say Watford because Watford at home. Well, actually, no. My argument is that Huddersfield away just nowhere near as good as they are at home. So I'm gonna say Watford.
I'm going to go quite controversial just because I want to try and get one over you because we've not agreed too much. I'm going to go for a draw in this because I'm not particularly convinced by Watford, in all honesty. Although a very decent side. I think under the new manager, they've played a couple of hard games. They've beaten Norwich, obviously. They've lost to Swansea. I don't know about Watford really at the moment. They seem to be a very much a team they're just not quite doing enough to win games all the time. It feels like they're just slowly fizzling out despite picking up points enough to keep them in the top 6. They're not a team that's going to blow anyone away. I think is the point I'm trying to get at. And Huddersfield are a very good team, and they'll keep in it. And they gave Reading a good game, so I'm going to go for a draw in that one. And then finally, Barnsley, Swansea, and Regan. You spoke about under the radar a few games ago when we mentioned Forest Mill. Barnsley have gone under the radar. Mate, they're 9th in the league. They have done brilliantly since Struber left. Are they going to give Swansea a tough test?
I mean, I'm gonna predict a draw on this one, but I don't think it's going to be an extremely tough test. I just think it's a case where these are 2 once again defensively solid teams where they will let the other team just have the ball, and I think Barnsley will probably have more of the lion's share of the ball. But I don't think they'll produce much because it's against a Swansea defence, which is the best in the league. I'm either going to say, I'm going to say draw regardless, but it can either be a really drab 0-0 or a 1-0 because I don't think Nez has goals in because Swansea are playing in this game. So I'm gonna hedge my bets and say draw just to be safe because I surprisingly can't really call a winner in this one.
I'm going to controversially go Barnsley. I think it's a game where Swansea have been on great form recently, but a slip-up is due. They have had a few slip-ups this season, despite obviously for the most part being good. They have slipped up maybe when you least expect it. Barnsley are a very good team. Despite Norwich having a few chances, run Norwich very close, only losing 1-0. I don't know, just think the trip to Oakwell is not very easy at all. I think Barnsley could just quite nick it. I don't know. I just fancy it. I fancy Barnsley win in that one. I know that is the end of our championship predictions for this game week. We will be back probably in a couple weeks' time once these games have been played. To preview the midweek games because once after this FA Cup break, they're coming quick and they're coming fast again as they had been before. But anyway, Regan, what have they got to do? They've got to, if they've enjoyed the video, they've got to like the video, subscribe to the From the Terrace podcast YouTube channel, leave us a rating on iTunes, follow us on Spotify, and guys, we'll see you in the next Champ Talk.